What's up everyone, it's Colin from GIY Guy, and today we're diving into the nutrition value of 7 common compost items. Now I don't know about you, but as a new gardener, I've been kind of confused by some of the garden myths floating around on the internet. So today, we're going to see which scraps are the most beneficial for your compost pile, and also debunk a few myths along the way. Let's dive in. Alright, so the 7 compost items I'm going to cover today are banana peels, tomatoes, coffee grounds, apple cores, eggshells, orange peels, and grass clippings. These are probably the most common things you'll find or throw onto your compost pile. So what I'm going to do is break down the nutrient content of each of these one by one. The first one we've got is banana peels. Now I'm going to keep the same format for these slides. I'm going to show their approximate pH, their water content, and then a breakdown of their nutrients as a dry percentage. Now banana peels have some misconceptions. Some people think that there's 0% nitrogen, which means they're good fertilizer for flowering plants, and others say they have 42% potassium, which just doesn't make any sense if you think about half the banana peel being potassium. And so I dug a little deeper and found a research article, or actually an article that cited research by a guy named Robert Pavlis. He writes the blog Garden Myths, and he found 4 research articles that actually discuss banana peel nutrition. And he found that after taking an average of these 4 articles, banana peels are about 81% water, and then they have just trace amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium, and their main contribution is potassium at 4.6%. So 4.6% is good, but it's nowhere near that 42% claim, so I'm not sure where they got that number. Now the next one up is tomatoes. So Robert claimed that tomatoes are similar in potassium content to bananas, which turned out to be true. They're about 3.4%, and then their nitrogen is about 2.2%. They're also 95% water, so all these are obviously dehydrated values. They have some trace amounts of phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium, and they're also pretty acidic. They have about 4.5 pH, so if you had like a billion tomatoes, you could probably temporarily lower your soil pH if you wanted to, but tomatoes are good for added sugar to your compost as well to help feed those microbes. Next we've got coffee grounds. So coffee grounds have a few myths around them. Number one is the claim that their pH is acidic. That's just not true. They have a pH of like 6 to 7 depending on how you brew your coffee. Now if you use unused coffee grounds, then maybe it'll be a little more acidic, but I doubt you're going to go dump like a bag of Starbucks coffee on your compost pile. So coffee grounds contain about 2% nitrogen, 0.5% phosphorus, and 0.5% potassium. That's really all they have to offer. Now that nitrogen is actually a good slow release nitrogen because the proteins in the coffee grounds have to be broken down by the soil microbes before it can be turned into nitrogen. So instead of just like a quick fix fertilizer, this will be something to amend in your soil to get an extended release of nitrogen over a few months. Another opinion I saw was that coffee grounds can be used as garden mulch, which I probably wouldn't do myself because they're really fine particles. Now similar to clay, those particles are going to pack together, and when they pack together, then your water is going to run off of them instead of absorbing into your garden soil. And the other thing is that when the coffee grounds dry out, they actually repel water, kind of like peat moss does. So probably not my first choice as a garden mulch. The next item on the list is apple cores. So apple cores have a pH of about 4. Unless you have a bunch of them, you're probably not going to lower your soil pH at all, and they're really lacking in all these other nutrients, maybe a little bit of potassium, but their main contribution, other than the fact that they're organic matter, is that they're high in sugar content. So this high sugar content is going to feed your soil bacteria and your microbes, and that's what's going to speed up your composting process. The next one that's got some confusion around is eggshells. So eggshells are pretty worthless. They have a pH of about 7, not really any good nutrients except the fact that they're 35% calcium. So because they have so much calcium, some people think that they're good for fighting blossom end rot. Well, that's just not true because blossom end rot is not caused by calcium deficiency. Most soil in North America has plenty of calcium. Eggshells aren't going to fix your problem. Also, they take forever to decompose, so you'll probably see them in your compost pile like a year later. We've only got 2 left, and the next one is orange peels. Now this would probably go in the pile of don't recommend for your compost because they don't have a lot to offer as far as nutrients go. Their pH is about 4. They're probably not going to help you amend your soil over the long term unless you have a ton of them, but even then they take forever to decompose, so I don't recommend adding a lot to your compost pile. Other than that, they just have a few nutrients like potassium and calcium, but probably nothing worth adding to your compost pile. The last one on the list is grass clippings. Now if I could only choose to compost one item in this list, it would be this one because it is chock full of nutrients. It's got 4% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, 2% potassium. There's your bag of NPK fertilizer right there. I even saw a turf blog that said if you leave behind the top inch of grass that you cut, it's going to satisfy 25% of your yard fertilization needs. Now I don't know about you, but rather than take all that good stuff to a landfill somewhere, I would much rather compost it and recycle all those nutrients into my garden soil. Now to summarize, I created this chart that I hope helps you visualize the nutrient content of each of these items. Out of the 7, there are only 2 that I wouldn't recommend recommend throwing in your compost pile, that's eggshells and orange peels. They just take a long time to decompose and they really don't add a lot in terms of nutrients. Now the other 5 items I would highly recommend. Banana peels are a great potassium source, tomatoes high in potassium and nitrogen, coffee grounds have that slow release nitrogen we like, and then apple cores are high in sugar that helps feed our microbes and encourage life in our compost pile. And then finally, best overall, you can't beat grass clippings. They're just a solid NPK fertilizer. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a thing or two about compost nutrition. Hopefully you get a better idea of what you're actually throwing into your compost pile and maybe some things that aren't even worth throwing in there. If there's a compost item I missed that you're interested in, throw it in the comments below. I'll do some research and try to get back to you. Also, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up for me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It helps out my channel a ton. Until next time, keep growing it yourself.